Welcome to the AEN Stories channel.
People like to say, if these walls could talk. In my case, they probably could. I cut half the studs myself, argued with every warped board, and swore at these joists so much I'm surprised the drywall doesn't blush. My name's Noah Bennett. I'm 37, a carpenter by trade, and there's a house on the edge of town that knows more about me than most people ever will. I poured the foundation, raised the frame, set the roof, and sanded every rail until my fingerprints probably live in the wood grain. It was supposed to be the house Rachel and I grew old in. We can go ahead and spoiler that, it didn't work out that way. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I grew up in houses other people built. Tract homes, rentals with carpet older than I was, places where the front porch sagged just enough to squeak when my dad came home late. Nothing fancy. Nothing terrible. Just generic. My old man worked maintenance, then construction. He used to drive us around pointing at buildings. "See that garage?" he'd say. "I did the trusses on that." Held together through 3 ice storms. He was proud of every nail that outlived him. Some kids wanted to be astronauts or rock stars. I wanted to be the guy who could point at a roof and say, "That stands up because I said so." I started as a helper, sweeping sawdust, fetching tools nobody actually needed but wanted to see if I knew the difference, learning to read a tape measure without squinting. By my mid-20s, I had my own truck with a logo on the side and enough repeat clients to consider myself a real grown-up. Somewhere in all that, I met Rachel. She was a high school English teacher, which meant she spent her days trying to convince 16-year-olds that theme was not, in fact, a conspiracy. Hazel eyes, dark hair, a laugh that made my chest feel like I just walked into warm air. We met at my buddy Jake's barbecue. She'd come with a friend, carrying a bowl of something healthy to put next to the pile of chips and hot dogs. "Hi," she said, sticking out her hand. "I'm Rachel." "Noah," I said, wiping my hand on my jeans before I shook hers so I wouldn't smear dust on her. "I build things." She looked at my calloused fingers and grinned. "Like what?" she asked. "Decks. Stairs. Sometimes relationships with good clients," I said. "What about you?" "I assign essays no one wants to write," she said. "And tell kids to stop stapling their personal trauma to their homework." I laughed. She laughed. That was pretty much it. We started seeing each other. Coffee, then dinner, then weekends spent in the kind of comfortable silence you only get with someone who understands that being together doesn't always mean talking. She'd grade papers at my kitchen table while I sketched rough layouts for jobs on napkins. It was Rachel who first said, "You should build us a house." We were lying on the floor of my apartment because the couch had lost the war against gravity. "You hate this carpet," she said. "I do," I admitted. "It's like walking on the inside of a vacuum bag." "And you complain every time the upstairs neighbor steps wrong," she went on. "That's because his wrong step is directly above my head," I said. "So," she said, rolling onto her side, "build something better." "Like what?" I asked. She propped her head on her hand. "Like a house," she said. "Our house. You always talk about the details you do differently. The way you'd frame a dormer, the way you'd run trim. Why not do it for us?" I stared at the ceiling, already mentally ripping it down. "You realize," I said slowly, "if we go that route you're kind of stuck with me." She smiled. "I'm not saying it's a small decision," she said. "I'm saying I'm not afraid of it." We got married in a small ceremony in her parents' backyard, white chairs, mason jars, the whole Pinterest starter kit. She walked down an aisle that was slightly uneven because I'd helped lay it and eyeballed half the spacing. She still said yes, so I guess it wasn't that bad. We bought a piece of land on the edge of town. Not huge, but enough. Trees, a little slope, a view of a creek that only looked romantic until you had to mow near it. For a while, life was a montage, me in a tool belt, her in a cardigan with red pen stains, both of us high on this idea that we were building something permanent. I'd work my regular jobs during the day, then swing by our lot and put in hours on the foundation, the frame, the roof. Friends would come help on weekends. We'd grill cheap hot dogs on a half-finished deck, standing around in sawdust, talking about where the imaginary couch would go. Rachel would walk through the skeleton of the house like she already saw drywall and paint colors. "This will be my reading nook," she'd say, perched on a bare joist. "This will be the kitchen," I'd say, waving at an empty space where someday I'd bang my hip on an island. She wanted big windows. I wanted thick walls. We compromised: big windows, good insulation. She wanted a bright, open kitchen. I wanted a workshop out back. We put both on the plan. I poured the foundation myself. My buddies thought I was crazy. "Hire that out," they said. "You screw one thing up and you'll be mad at yourself forever." "Exactly," I said. "If I screw it up, I know who to be mad at." I was tired all the time, but it was the good kind of tired. The kind where your muscles hurt in a way that says, you did something. Rachel would bring pizza to the site, sit on an overturned bucket, and watch me climb scaffolding with more confidence than grace. "I can't believe you're doing all this," she'd say. "Believe it," I'd say. "I'm finally getting to yell at myself as the subcontractor." We moved into the house before it was completely finished. Anyone who's ever built knows, there's done enough to live in and done. We hit the first mark and stalled on the second, like normal humans. The trim got finished in the main rooms. The upstairs bathroom had a door. The basement was a box of good intentions and plastic totes. Outside, the yard was mostly dirt wearing a grass seed disguise. Out back, at the edge of the property near the trees, I'd started building a gazebo. Rachel had wanted it. "Somewhere to sit and drink coffee and pretend we're in a magazine," she'd said. I dug the footings, set the posts, framed the roof. I put in maybe half the railing before work got busy and my energy got low. "It's okay," she said, when I apologized for the sawdust skeleton. "I like watching it come together." For a while, things were good. She'd leave in the mornings with her teacher bag and her travel mug. I'd head for the job site. We'd regroup in the evenings, tired, trading stories. But somewhere between the second winter and the third spring, the rhythm changed. It started with meetings. "I have a department thing," she said one Tuesday. "Curriculum planning." "Okay," I said. "Want me to save you dinner?" "Don't bother," she said. "We're probably ordering in." Then, another night, some of us are meeting with the principal about new standards. Then, the English team is staying late to go over testing data. I don't begrudge anyone their work meetings. I've sat through enough of my own to know they're their own form of punishment. At first, I assumed that's all it was. But the nights got more frequent. Colleague drinks. Union planning. Workshop debrief. Her explanations stopped sounding like things she wanted to do and more like things she wanted me not to ask about. One Saturday, she announced she had a professional development conference. "On a Saturday?" I asked. She shrugged. "They always do them on weekends. Teachers don't have time during the week to do anything but teach and paperwork." Fair point. She packed a bag just big enough for one night. "Where's the conference?" I asked. "City," she said, naming the nearby bigger town. "I'll be back tomorrow afternoon." "You driving back alone?" I asked. "You want me to come pick you up?" "I'll be fine," she said. "It's teachers. We're going to sit in a hotel ballroom, listen to someone tell us to differentiate more, and then go to bed early like the boring people we are." She said it lightly. I laughed. Still, something in my chest registered a little wobble. Maybe if I were a different kind of guy, this is where I'd have done the dramatic follow her car thing. I'm not. I'm the kind of guy who trusts until he has a reason not to. Also the kind who was behind on a deck job and decided Saturday would be a good day to get caught up. She came back Sunday afternoon with a lanyard and a folder of handouts. Showed me a pamphlet on new strategies for engaging reluctant readers. "How was it?" I asked. "Long," she said. "Useful, I guess." She flopped on the couch. I went back to measuring trim. Life went on. The receipt came about a month later. I wasn't snooping. I know, everybody says that, but I really wasn't. I was looking for a valve handle in the junk drawer because the kitchen sink had decided to spit water like an offended camel, and I do not like calling plumbers for things I can fix. The junk drawer is where we put everything that doesn't have a home and probably doesn't belong in ours anyway. Rubber bands, spare keys, a screwdriver that matches nothing, and a fossilized granola bar. Mixed in with that was a folded piece of glossy paper. I thought it was one of those coupons hotels send out. Stay 2 nights, eat our waffles. I almost threw it out. Then I saw Rachel's name. It was a receipt. 1 night's stay at a downtown hotel in the city she'd mentioned. King room, 2 guests listed. Dinner charged to the room. A bottle of wine that cost more than my first circular saw. The date stamped across the top matched her professional development weekend. I stood there in the kitchen with the drawer half open, the sink still dripping, the house I had built around me suddenly feeling like it was missing a wall. There's that moment you see in movies where the character flashes back through every interaction, every weird comment, every late night. Real life isn't that fast. It's slower. Stickier. My brain tried to reject what my eyes were seeing. Maybe she'd shared a room to save money. Maybe the conference had booked them that way. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe. I put the receipt back in the drawer. Closed it. Sat down at the table because standing felt ambitious. When Rachel came home that day, smelling like school and coffee and whatever they clean whiteboards with, I didn't pounce. I'm not built for theatrical confrontations. We ate dinner. She graded half a stack of essays, red pen moving like a metronome. Finally, I said, "Hey, I was digging in the junk drawer earlier and found something." She didn't look up. "Is it the key to Narnia?" she said. "Because I've been looking for an escape hatch." "Hotel receipt," I said. "From your conference." Her hand froze. The pen left a little red dot on symbolism. "That was a while ago," she said. "Not that long," I said. "Long enough for the hotel to charge you, short enough for the ink to still be bright." She set the pen down and took a breath, the kind you take before a hard truth or a good lie. "What about it?" she asked. "It lists 2 guests," I said. "In a king room." A flush crept up her neck. I'd seen that flush before, but never like this. "It was easier to share," she said. "School only reimburses so much." "My colleague and I?" "Male or female colleague?" I asked. She frowned. "What difference does that make?" she said. "It makes a difference to me," I said. "And to my ability to sleep at night." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You sound ridiculous," she said. Suspicious husband finds receipt and jumps straight to the worst conclusion. Classic. "Is it the wrong conclusion?" I asked. Silence. "Not long. Just long enough." She stood up, walked to the sink, turned the faucet off like that would cut off the conversation too. "I'm tired of this house," she said finally. That was not the line I expected. "What's wrong with the house?" I asked. "Aside from the sink, which I'm literally fixing." "It's not just the house," she said, turning to face me. "It's everything. You. This life. I feel like I'm trapped in a Pinterest board someone forgot to update." I looked around at the kitchen I'd built. The cabinets I'd hung. The stupidly expensive tile she'd picked out that I'd cut around 100 outlets. "I thought this was what you wanted," I said. She shook her head. "I wanted a future," she said. "Not a project. You've given me nothing but a saw, some dust, and endless talk about wood grain. I go to school, I talk to people doing things, and I come home to you fussing over miters and thinking it's enough." "That's not fair," I said, more quietly than I felt. She snorted. "Life's not fair, Noah," she said. "You taught me that every time you said we couldn't afford a vacation because you needed a new tool." "You think I bought tools for fun?" I said. "I bought them so I could build this place. For us." She rolled her eyes. "For you," she said. "You built this for you. I just live in it." The words that came next were the ones that stuck like a splinter I'd step on for months. "You didn't give me anything," she said. "Nothing but a saw and boredom." I'd heard worse things on job sites. But never from her. She walked away. One upstairs. Closed the bedroom door. I sat there at the kitchen table in the house I'd built, listening to the faint hum of the fridge and the faint creak of floorboards as she moved around above me, feeling like someone had taken a chisel to the inside of my chest. That night, I couldn't sleep. The bed felt wrong. The walls felt closer. At some point, I grabbed a hoodie and slipped outside, down the back steps, across the dirt patch that was supposed to be a lawn, to the half-finished gazebo. It was just posts, beams, and an unfinished roof. No lights. No railings. Which, in hindsight, made it a great metaphor for my life at that moment. I sat on one of the crossbeams, looking out at the dark line of trees. The house glowed softly behind me. The windows I'd framed were perfect rectangles of light. From here, it looked like something out of a magazine, minus the weeds. I thought about tearing it all down. I really did. Just knocking the whole thing down to the foundation and walking away. Letting someone else deal with the mess. Of course, that's not how any of this works. You can't unbuild a mortgage. I sat there until the sky lightened from black to charcoal to that pale blue that says, "Congratulations, you've successfully not slept at all." My hands itched with that restless energy that usually means new project, but I didn't have one. All I had was a house that suddenly felt less like a dream and more like a question. Somewhere between an owl hooting and a neighbor's sprinklers sputtering to life, a sentence came to me. I build. I don't destroy. It wasn't a battle cry. It was a reminder. To myself. To the part of me that wanted to grab a sledgehammer and make the outside match the inside. I build. That's what I do. Houses. Decks. Sometimes, stupidly, futures. I measure, cut, and fasten things so they hold. If something's rotten, you don't torch the whole structure. You cut out the rot, you shore up what's left, and you rebuild. It didn't make me feel good. But it gave me something to hold on to. The next few weeks were tense. Rachel got better at hiding things. Or maybe she'd always been this good and I'd just started looking. More late nights. More vague explanations. More comments about how some people had real careers and didn't spend their evenings sanding railings. I threw myself into work. Clients started commenting on how fast I was finishing jobs. That's what happens when your home is not relaxing. Then one afternoon, I came home early. I'd had a cancellation, client got COVID, rescheduled, the new normal. I figured I'd surprise Rachel, maybe suggest we actually talk like two people who once liked each other. Her car wasn't in the driveway. No big deal. It was still school hours. I went inside, grabbed a drink from the fridge, and walked past the little office we'd set up off the hall. Her laptop was open on the desk. Email on the screen. I know. That's the moment where the movie audience starts yelling, "Don't read it," at the idiot on screen. I didn't go in planning to. I was going to keep walking. Then my eyes snagged on the subject line of the top email, "Offer on Bennett property urgent." Bennett is my last name. Property is my house. Now, I'm not proud of what I did next, but I'm also not going to lie. I stepped into the office and looked. It was an email from a real estate agent I'd never heard of, addressed to Rachel. Attached, a purchase offer. For our house. Dollar amount right there in bold. Contingencies. Closing date. The works. Under seller on the attached document, there was one name typed, Rachel Bennett. My name was nowhere on it. My stomach dropped so fast I felt it in my toes. I clicked another email in the thread. Again, not defending, just reporting. There were messages between Rachel and the agent discussing listing the house, keeping it off the public market, and making sure he doesn't find out until it's too late to sabotage the process. He. That would be me. I scrolled. There were draft documents where my signature line was there, with a scribble that approximated my name in the laziest way possible. It wasn't even my handwriting. I write like a man who fills out forms all day. This looked like someone signing a delivery slip when they're late for work. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it. My hands shook, just a little. Not rage. Something colder. She wasn't just cheating. She was trying to sell the house out from under me. The house I literally built. Without telling me. Banking on me being too conflict avoidant to do anything. I took photos with my phone. Every email, every draft, every note. I forwarded a couple of key messages to my own account. Left everything on the screen exactly as I'd found it. Then I went out to the backyard, sat in the half-finished gazebo, and stared at the house again. You would think I cried or screamed or called a friend. I didn't. I sat there calmly, like my brain had switched into the same mode it goes into when a client's porch turns out to be 2 inches out of square and I have to fix it without making them feel stupid. You assess. You plan. You act. If Rachel thought I wouldn't go to court, she'd misjudged me badly. I might hate paperwork. I might avoid arguments. But I understand contracts. I understand property law. And I understand that forging my name on anything is a very bad idea. I called a lawyer. Not the kind of guy who does commercials during daytime TV. A local woman named Harris who'd hired me once to redo her deck. She'd told me then, if you ever need a real lawyer, call me. I owe you for not letting me buy the cheap railing. Funny how life works, I said when she picked up. I need a real lawyer. We met in her office the next day. I brought my phone, the photos, and a copy of our deed. She looked through the emails, the draft contract, the forged signature. So, she said, leaning back, your wife is trying to sell the house out from under you, using a forged version of your signature, without your knowledge or consent. Seems that way, I said. You built this place? She asked. Every board, I said. She whistled. I've seen messy divorces, she said. This is ambitious. I don't even know if she's planning to divorce, I said. Maybe she just wants the cash and a fresh start somewhere else. I haven't exactly been looped in. She looked at me for a second, like she was measuring whether I'd collapse if she said the wrong thing. You okay? She asked. Ask me after we're done, I said. We went over the options. Under the law in our state, the house was marital property. We both had an interest. One owner can't legally sell without the other's consent. A forged signature makes any contract voidable. Also, it's fraud. People go to jail for that. We can go nuclear, Harris said. Press charges. File a criminal complaint. Or we can file a civil suit to block the sale, establish your rights, and let the criminal part be implied. I don't need to see her in handcuffs, I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. I just don't want to lose the house I built because she got creative with a pen. Then we file fast, she said. Injunction to stop any transfer. Complaint for fraud, forgery, and whatever else fits. Judges don't like forged signatures. It offends their paperwork religion. She smiled a little. I didn't. Not yet. We filed. I wish I could tell you Rachel was shocked when she got served. She was more annoyed. This is ridiculous, she said, slapping the papers on the kitchen counter. Are you serious, Noah? You're suing me? You tried to sell the house without telling me, I said. Yes. I'm serious. You weren't supposed to find out yet, she said, like that was the real crime. I blanked. She caught herself and rolled her eyes. I was going to talk to you, she said. But I knew you'd overreact, like you're doing now. I wanted to have everything lined up first. Everything lined up, I repeated. Including my forged signature? That's not forged, she said too quickly. You just don't remember signing. I remember every document I've signed about this house, I said. Because I read them, because I care, because I built it. That scribble looks like somebody signed my name with their left hand in a moving car. She folded her arms. You're being dramatic, she said. You know we can't afford to keep this place if you don't start making more money. It's too much house for what you are. What I am? I asked. A guy with a toolbox and no ambition, she said. This was a fun project, but it's not sustainable. Rachel, I said, carefully, you work at a public school and drive a 10-year-old Corolla. You're not exactly living in a different tax bracket here. She flushed. Victor says, she started, then stopped. Victor? I asked. Is that from the conference? She clamped her mouth shut. Whatever, she said. This is pointless. You can't stop this forever. A judge is going to look at our finances and force a sale anyway. We'll see, I said. I build. I don't destroy. But I'll demo whatever lies you put in front of me. Court isn't like TV. There are no surprise witnesses bursting through doors. There's just paperwork, scheduling, and people in suits trying to sound more certain than they are. Our case landed in front of Judge Martinez. I'd done trim work in his kitchen once. He'd given me a lecture about overbilling for crown molding. Fair guy, bit of a stickler. At the hearing, Harris laid it out cleanly, deed in both names, attempted sale without consent, draft contract with suspect signature, email thread showing intent to conceal. She walked the judge through my photos, the access logs from the agent's system showing Rachel had uploaded the scanned signature, the timing. Rachel claimed it was all a misunderstanding. That she thought she had power of attorney. That I'd verbally agreed to the sale. Do you have any written documentation of this agreement? Judge Martinez asked. No, she said. Do you have a power of attorney document? He asked. She shifted. Not exactly, she said. You mean not at all, he said. I have no patience for forged signatures in my courtroom. None. She tried a different tack. He's being emotional, she said, nodding at me. This house is his baby. He can't see reason. I was trying to make a financially responsible decision. On cue, Harris produced our bank statements showing that, yes, the mortgage was a chunk, but we weren't in crisis. That my little carpentry business, while not flashy, was steady. That Rachel's checks cleared just fine when she wasn't ascribing all of her issues to my lack of ambition. The judge asked a few more questions. Some about finances. Some about intent. Mrs. Bennett, he said finally, even if I believed every word you said about your reasons, and I don't, none of it excuses signing your husband's name on a binding legal document without his knowledge. That is fraud. That undermines every piece of paper this system relies on. This court will not tolerate it. He granted our injunction. He voided any pending contract for sale of the house. In the same ruling, because we'd asked and he clearly felt motivated, he issued a declaratory judgment: the house would remain with me. If, in the eventual divorce, assets needed to be split, the financial value could be addressed, but the actual deed and occupancy? Mine. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in weeks. Rachel got up to leave before the judge adjourned. Harris touched my arm lightly. Let him finish, she whispered. As we walked out, Harris looked at me. You okay? She asked. I keep getting asked that, I said. I'll let you all know when I figure it out. Word gets around in a town like ours. People knew Rachel had tried to sell the house. People knew she'd lost in court. I didn't say much. Neither did she. A week after the ruling, I came home to find some of her clothes missing, a couple of suitcases gone, and an envelope on the kitchen table. Inside, a note. It wasn't long. Noah. You got what you wanted. The house is yours. I can't live in a place that feels like a monument to my worst decisions. I'm leaving town for a while. Maybe for good. Don't worry, I won't touch the tools. Rachel. I snorted at the last line despite myself. She was right about one thing: the house felt like a monument. Just not the kind she thought. The divorce took its course. Same old forms, different boxes checked. We didn't fight much. We didn't have kids, which made it simpler and sadder at the same time. She got some of the savings. I got some debt. She moved in with friends in another city, then, last I heard, got a job somewhere far enough away that I'd have to really want to see her, which I did not. People asked if I was relieved. Or devastated. Or angry. Yes, I'd say. All of that. Depends what time of day you catch me. But here's the thing, life didn't pause. Decks still needed building. Roofs still needed patching. People still called, asking, "Can you come look at this?" The last guy half-assed it. I knew how that felt. So I worked. I replaced rotten boards. I jacked up sagging beams. I started, slowly, to do the same inside my own head. One Saturday morning, I went out to the back of the property with a mug of coffee and looked at the gazebo. Same as it had been that long. Bad night, posts, beams, half-finished roof, railings waiting in a stack nearby. The skeleton of a plan I'd once had with someone else. For a while after she left, I'd avoided it. It felt like the set of a movie we'd stopped shooting. But standing there in the sunlight, watching dust motes dance in the air, I felt something shift. This land is still mine, I thought. This project is still mine. The fact that she was part of why I started it doesn't mean she gets to be the reason I never finish it. I set the coffee down. Picked up a tape measure. I build. I don't destroy. The work was therapeutic, I guess is the word people use. I prefer busy. But there was something satisfying about finally finishing something that had hung over my head for so long. I set the remaining posts plumb. I cut the railings to length, notching them so they slid into place just right. I laid the decking boards in a fan pattern that made my inner perfectionist purr. I added braces where the structure felt a little wobbly, because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that you never regret overbuilding something you plan to lean on. Neighbors would wander over, beers in hand. "Looks good, Noah," they'd say. About time I finished it, I'd reply. "Yeah, well," one of them said, "sometimes you gotta rip out the rot before you can build it right." People think carpenters don't do metaphors. We do. We just do them in pine. When the gazebo was finally done, roof on, rails in, floor sanded and stained, I stood in the center and looked back at the house. Same siding. Same windows. Same roofline I'd drawn on a napkin years ago. Different feeling. It didn't look like a monument to my failure anymore. It looked like what it always was, something I built with my hands. I decided it needed a sign. Not a big, cheesy live, laugh, love thing. Something simple. I went into the shop, dug out a nice piece of scrap oak I'd been hoarding for no good reason, and planed it smooth. Routed the edges. Sketched out letters in pencil first, then chiseled them carefully. Home built on truth. It took me longer than it should have. Maybe because I wanted to get it just right. Maybe because I kept thinking about how, for all the lies that had been told inside that house, the lumber hadn't lied once. It did what it was built to do. I stained the letters a little darker, sealed the whole thing, and mounted it on the inside beam of the gazebo facing the house. Some people might say that was petty. Maybe it was. But it felt less like a jab at her and more like a promise to myself. The next time someone came over and noticed it, they raised an eyebrow. "Little on the nose, don't you think?" they said. "Yeah," I said. "But I'm done pretending I don't care about that stuff." Here's the part where I'm supposed to say I'm happier now. Some days, sure. Some days I still walk past the kitchen and see us laughing over takeout from a life that doesn't exist anymore. What I am, most consistently, is okay. I wake up in a house I know down to the studs. I know where the pipes run, where the wires go, where the floor squeaks. I know which wall is bearing and which is just for privacy. I know how it feels when the wind hits just right and the whole structure hums like a big wooden tuning fork. A couple of times, people have asked if I'll ever sell. Maybe, I say. If I find something I want more than this. So far, I add in my head, I haven't. Sometimes, at the end of a long day, I take a beer out to the gazebo and sit under that little oak sign. The sun goes down behind the trees. The house glows. The grass, which finally grew in after I stopped ignoring the yard, feels soft under my boots. I think about that night I almost decided to tear everything down. I think about how close I came to letting someone else's choices turn my entire life into rubble. Then I run my hand along the railing I sanded myself and remind myself of the thing I learned the hard way. You don't control who walks into your house. You don't control what they do with your trust. All you control is what you build, what you stand on, and what you refuse to sign your name to. I build. I don't destroy. Turns out, that goes for more than lumber. Thank you for listening my story. If you want more raw, real, and gripping stories like this one, subscribe to the AEN Stories channel. Your support keeps these stories alive.